I got an Emmy for my work on The Simpsons and a Golden Globe Award for a show called Third Rock from the Sun, which was about aliens impersonating themselves as human beings. And that show had a lot of Torah in it. For me, I felt like the best way that I could say thank you back to God was by keeping Shabbos. I think all of us feel deep down that something is missing. And kind of the more sensitive we are as human beings, the more we're in touch with that aspect that we feel is missing. And a lot of us don't know what to do with that sense, you know? And we try to fill it with different things, and nothing fits. And the reason nothing fits is because it's a God-shaped hole. The only thing that fits is God.
If you're watching this episode on YouTube or Spotify, let us know in the comments with the word FIRE. 5 lucky winners will win the brand new Kutzk book by Reb Struli Besser and Art School, and you'll see how it ties into David's life. In this thoughtful episode, Emmy and Golden Globe-winning writer David Sachs, known for The Simpsons, Third Rock from the Sun, Malcolm in the Middle, and more, shares his unique Baal Teshuva journey. This isn't a story of dramatic visions or divine interventions, but one of introspection, love, and deep realization that Hashem has been orchestrating his life all along, from Harvard to Hollywood and beyond. You'll also hear about Ohr Somayach, an incredible organization dedicated to educating and inspiring the Jewish world, BitBean, a powerhouse in business innovation and software solutions, Twillory, whether you're crushing it at the gym or just lounging at home, you'll see why their clothes make sense for you, and the Dream Raffle, a life-changing opportunity to win $1 million apartment in Israel. This episode is in memory of Shem and David ben Yaakov Shlomo and Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Moshe. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. David Sachs, thank you so much for coming in all the way from LA.
Yaakov, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for having me.
I think you might be the first guest to win an Emmy and a Golden Globe on Inspiration for the Nation.
That can't be true.
Maybe one of the Rabbanim secretly, I don't know. But there's so much about your journey that I'm so curious about. And then also how you got into the whole Hasidus world. Like, there's a lot there. So
yeah.
Could you take us back to, I guess, your childhood, what that was like, and take us through your journey?
Sure. Well, I was trying to remember my first memory of God. And just for background, I grew up in a strongly Jewish home, very, very positive, but it wasn't Orthodox. We didn't keep kosher, we didn't keep Shabbos or anything like that. And I remember, I think I was 6 years old, and someone told me, when you burp, you're supposed to say, "Excuse me." And I remember that night I was sitting alone in my kitchen and I burped. And I had like this very philosophical question. There's no one here. Am I supposed to say, "Excuse me"? And then I thought, God is here. And so I said, "Excuse me." And so I was wondering, like, how did I know to do that, right? And then I remembered an earlier memory of God, which was my mother every night would sit on my bed and say Shema Yisrael with me. And that gets in your bones, you know?
That's really cool. That's really cool. And okay, so as you're progressing, I guess, with your Jewish journey, like, do you remember your first Shabbos, like actual full Shabbos?
Yeah, probably it was at Camp Ramah. So I sort of, in my growing up, I grew up in a sort of a reform temple, I guess. And then I went to a very conservative camp. Back in that day, Camp Ramah was pretty orthodox. I mean, they had a mechitza. We had a Torah shir every single morning. There was kosher. No one used the lights on Shabbos. So that was sort of like my introduction into a formal Shabbos, a traditional Shabbos. And then when I was 14 years old, I started going to Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach shul, which I could see out of the window of my apartment building on 79th Street. And my grandmother, toward the end of her life, it's a giant building. It's called the Apthorpe. It was only one Orthodox family in the entire building. There's something like 500 families there. And we knew them, we were friendly with them. And my grandmother, toward the end of her life, she was having trouble walking and she wanted to go to shul. And so this wonderful person, Lillian Schatz was her name. She said, "Well, there's a place on 79th Street." And my grandmother went, she saw Reb Shlomo, she loved him. She brought my mother loved him. She brought my sister loved him. And then they brought me. So that was kind of my entry into Hasidus, if you will.
Okay, so there's a little of a domino effect of like your whole family getting involved in his world. Did you personally have a relationship with him?
Yes, he was like a father to me.
Really?
Yeah. And I'll tell you something beautiful, which is that he traveled all over the world all the time. And so, even in the late 1970s when I was going to that shul and I was still in high school, when he was out of town, oftentimes they couldn't get a minyan at that shul. And my mother would tell me that the men would debate with themselves, should we wake up David, meaning me? And then they'd say, you know what, we don't want to give him a negative feeling about Torah. So let's just let him sleep. Because I wasn't really religious at the time, but there was such a sensitivity there that whatever I thought about Torah, about Judaism, should be positive.
At what point did you officially become Frum?
When I was 24. So when I was 15 years old, I remember dancing with the Torah there on Simchas Torah. And I remember holding the Torah and having this feeling that this was my entire life, that this is all that I wanted in my life. But interestingly, between that moment and my fully keeping Shabbos was 10 years. And so you might ask, what was I doing during those 10 years, right? So I was staying connected in different ways that I knew how. But one of the things that I did was that someone along the line told me that there was a way to put on your socks and shoes in a Torah way, which is, in case anybody doesn't know it, you put your right sock on and then your left sock on, and then your right shoe on, and then your left shoe on. And now it reverses.
Right.
Then you tie your left shoe,
right.
Then you tie your right shoe. And I remember during that period, till this day actually, I always put on my socks and shoes in a Torah way. And I remember thinking during that period, well, at least I'm doing this.
Sure. I mean, it's something,
I'll tell you though, but there's something big in there actually, because each mitzvah is actually infinite. Each mitzvah contains all the other mitzvahs. And each mitzvah itself is infinite, which means that if you take a part of infinity, that part is also infinite. So even if you're doing a small part of a mitzvah, ideally we get to the point where we're keeping the full mitzvah, right? But even if we keep a small part of the mitzvah, that in itself is infinite. So anyway, that's something good to know, because the Yetzer Hara, the negative inclination, wants to trick us into thinking that everything is all or nothing. And if you're not doing the entire thing, then you're doing nothing. And that's just a lie. I once thought of an example of that, which is, imagine you're walking down New York City street, any street in the world, right? And sadly, there's a homeless person laying across the sidewalk. And you see that person and you say, when's the last time that person had a good meal? Like a steak dinner. I would like to buy that person a steak dinner. And you reach into your pocket and you pull out a $10 bill and you say, that's not going to buy him a steak dinner. And you keep on walking. Now, meanwhile, he would have loved that $10.
Right. It's a very good point.
So our soul is like that homeless person, so to speak. In other words, our soul wants any Torah, any piece of a mitzvah. And we have to, be kind to it. We have to be charitable and not be fooled into this black and white kind of a lie.
It's also true that, even if we don't have the full picture, if our goal is to try to be as big as possible, your trajectory when you're doing the small things or things that you're like, it's too insignificant, you build up a momentum and you go and like a snowball, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
But the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclinations, it doesn't count. Don't do anything. You're gonna, not speak Lashon Hara once? What's that gonna help? No. It builds, it's like a muscle. It builds it up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's a famous Rambam, which is that what's better, to give $100 to one person or $1 to 100 people? And of course, if there's an extreme emergency situation, maybe the 100 would be the best thing to give out. But in general, all things being equal, it's better to give it out in $100 bill increments, because as you said, then you develop this muscle of giving inside of you.
It's really cool. It's really cool. Okay, so there's so much to cover with you, so I want to keep it moving. Take us through your experience, and I believe you weren't Orthodox at this point, going to Harvard,
right?
And we were talking before, you mentioned Conan O'Brien and getting into the world of writing in Hollywood. Take us through that, because I think I know it's probably boring for you, but for the average, I grew up in Flatbush, and I'm like, you wrote for The Simpsons? Like, that's pretty cool.
Oddly, my life changed because I grew up watching massive amounts of television. I loved television. And I didn't realize I was working at the time, Like, I think that would have given my mother a lot of sort of menucha if she knew, okay, he's working, he's at the office, But anyway,
Research.
Exactly. But other than watching TV, I didn't want to be a writer. I didn't want to be a quote unquote creative, whatever that means. I was going to be a lawyer. Maybe I majored in government. I was going to, whatever. So everything changed when I overheard a conversation between two people at the end of my freshman year at Harvard. One person says to the other, "What are you doing this summer?" And they said, "Well, I'm going to go trekking in Asia, like something very exotic, And the other person says, "Oh, I'm going to be doing this banking internship at JP Morgan, something very prestigious sounding." I remember thinking, I thought you just had to get into this place. I didn't know you had to do something fancy on your summer vacations. So I called my mother. I said, "Mom, what should I do?" And she said, "Well, I could talk to the superintendent and you can be the elevator man in our building." I grew up on 79th and Broadway. I said, "Make the call." And she calls me right back. "You got the job." So I felt bad because even though I got high grades, I wasn't a good student, meaning to say I was probably, to this day, the least studious person you could imagine, But my wife calls me the world's laziest workaholic, So anyway, I imagined all my classmates read all these great fancy books and things like that, and I hadn't read any of them. So to keep myself sane on the elevator, I decided I would start trying to read as many of the great books as I could. And that was a life-changing experience. And I experienced a calling that I wanted to be a writer. So being an elevator man changed my life and led to my career. And, to anyone out there listening who this might be meaningful to, I thought in retrospect, because at the time it was just very natural. My mom got me a job, so I'm an elevator man, so that's what it is, but didn't think twice about it. I imagine that I could have said, "An elevator man? That's beneath my dignity. Are you kidding me?" Which, again, it didn't even occur to me. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is you don't know how God runs the world, and you don't know what thing another thing leads to.
Mm.
And so if you get an opportunity, whatever the opportunity is, take the opportunity, and it will lead to something else. Don't be a big shot.
I love that lesson. That is so needed because that happens, I think, so often throughout our days, and we get on this track and we go into our mold of the things we say yes to, the things we say no to. And I know, even personally, whenever there's an event, my brother's always like, "You should go." And naturally, I don't like events, too many people, it's overwhelming. And the few times that I've gone, I'm always happy. I'm like, I met that person,
Right.
and now that person's in my life a lot. We work
Right.
together. And it's the same idea of just, through all your calculations, just take that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then from there, how did that lead to Harvard?
So I got onto our nation's oldest humor magazine, which is the Harvard Lampoon, and a lot of the comedy greats in the world, including, you mentioned Conan O'Brien.
Sure.
Dating back to the early 1900s, were on the Harvard Lampoon.
It's like an honor to be on there. It's not
and very hard to get on.
it's
by
not
the way.
easy. It's not easy.
extremely competitive to get on. It's not easy at all. And I was able to get on. It's interesting because it's kind of like an oddball society. At Harvard you have something called final clubs, and these are very prestigious, socially aristocratic men's clubs. I guess now they're co-ed. And then you have the Lampoon, which was a magazine, but it was also kind of a club. And there was also nothing elite about it, in that it just was this conglomeration of weirdos, basically, but all, offbeat and very interesting and funny. And that turned out to be my training ground for professional comedy writing for television. I was being given an education without even realizing it, meaning to say that the repartee, the back and forth, just the conversation was so quick and clever that if you were able to keep up with those people and even top them and things like that, that basically mimicked the dynamic of a professional Hollywood comedy writing room. And so, oddly, I was sort of being trained for that line of work, kind of in the way that watching TV as a kid I was sort of being trained without even knowing it.
I promise you want to hear the next story by Reb David, but first, 2025 is here, and new year, new goals, and some seriously fresh threads. I wear Twillory's activewear all the time, even when I'm not working out. Kind of makes me feel like I'm working out. The stretchy shirts, which I'm wearing right now, and awesome joggers are so comfortable, it feels like I'm crushing a workout. It's literally the coziest clothing I own, but still stylish enough to wear anywhere. And don't even get me started on how easy it is to wash. No dry cleaning drama here. Treat yourself. Use code word INSPIRE for $18 off when you spend $139 or more on your first purchase. Twillory, where comfort meets style, literally every day. We will be right back to our conversation, and an amazing part is coming up. But first, we have in the studio Rav Shmuel from the Dream Raffle.
That's
Rav
right.
Shmuel, could you tell us about the amazing prize this year?
The amazing prize this year is a brand new $1 million apartment in the heart of Yerushalayim. And when I say brand new, my daughter taught me a new expression in Hebrew. It's called mehanailonim, from the nylon. What does that mean? That means brand new. That means when you get something wrapped up, shrink wrapped. That's the expression.
At the time of recording this, it's not even ready yet. That's how new it is. It's not even
They haven't even put
finished
on the nylon.
Right.
Okay?
Wow.
But it is literally being finished now. It's a project called Lev Ha'ir. There's 5 buildings there. 4 are done, populated, people are living there. This is the 5th building that is literally going to be finished in the coming days. And this apartment is on the 9th floor with a Shabbos elevator. But what's extremely cool is that there's nobody living above you. So your mirpeset, your porch, is 100% kosher for a sukkah.
Oh, nice.
Most Yerushalayim sukkahs are like, all right, the guys sit over here in this 2 inches, and the rest is not a kosher sukkah because there's somebody above you. It's 16 and a half square meters. I don't know what that is in feet. I don't even know what it is in meters. In any case, the whole thing is kosher for a sukkah, which is you could invite the whole shul over basically for sukkahs. And that's this beautiful apartment.
And the view. The view.
Beautiful view, gorgeous view.
view.
And it's very close, about 2 blocks away from Shaarei Tzedek Hospital, Bayit Vagan, Givat Mordechai. Great area in a brand new building. And all kidding aside, it's wonderful, the prize. We're also offering a bonus raffle, $12,000 cash prize that is for people that are purchasing now, and a double offer of 1+1, plus the fact that if you use code LL, Living L'Chaim, you could save $10. But everything being said and done, the money is going to incredibly important causes. We're helping the residents of the North as they are returning to their homes. We're helping their communities, their yeshivot. They gave a nice check to the yeshiva in Katrina in the Golan Heights, which they must have had over 40 missile attacks in the last 2 months. And also the yeshiva in Akko. We're helping a mikveh that has been damaged. All these things, that's where the Dream Raffle funds go. So really everybody's a winner. I'm not just saying that because the money is being used for wonderful causes, and you could win a beautiful apartment in Yerushalayim. Remember that code LL to save $10. TheDreamRaffle.com, right? I'm looking at the camera.
Yeah.
TheDreamRaffle.com. Purchase your tickets now. Get 1+1 LL code to save $10, and you enter into the bonus raffle. Win-win, guys. I'm Yisrael Chai.
Really beautiful cause. Go ahead and please buy 1 to 1,000 tickets, however many as you can. Support the Dream Raffle and support the people of Israel. Now back to this week's episode. And what were you in Harvard for?
4 years. No. Let's see. What was I at Harvard for? You mean what did I major in?
Yeah,
Is that what you're
I guess so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
At that time, we're like,
it sounds like such an existential question, why are you here? Like in this world? What
were you aiming for at that point? Again, it's a great opportunity, but at that point in your life, where were you going towards? Like being a lawyer? Like that's where
I imagine law. I went to Bronx Science, and I was the president of the student body there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, part of me thought maybe politics or something like that.
But your heart and soul seems like it was in the Lampoon.
Well, my heart and soul kind of I discovered during my reading on the elevator. And so what I discovered to my shock was that I was actually really into creativity,
Mm-hmm.
and that if I had an opportunity where I could pursue that professionally, that I'd want to do that. And so I started writing pieces with another person there. And at a certain point, we said, hey, why don't we try to get on a TV show out in Hollywood when we graduate?
That's cool. Okay, so then what happened?
It happened. It happened. Yeah, probably about a month and a half after we graduated, I was 21. We got sort of like the call, the big break, a 3-week trial period on an HBO show on the writing staff, kind of the equivalent to the John Oliver show today. It was a parody of the news. So that didn't go that well. You talk about a high pressure gig. Like, wow, that was high pressure. And there were about 10, 12 people on the writing staff there. And it didn't go that well, the 3-week trial period. And so it went well enough that they gave us a second 3-week trial period. And that went really well. And so then they gave us a 4-week contract. And that was my introduction to job security Hollywood style, which is to say there is none. It's just like, this is Hollywood, just like, that's what it is.
Wow. Okay. And then as you're doing that, you think you're going to stay in the writing world? You have ambitions to write on certain shows, or it's like you'll take whatever you could get. Again, I don't know. If hack me up about nursing homes or real estate. I have enough friends. I like this. I don't know how this space works at all.
Yeah. Well, no one does. No one does. That's why Hollywood is Hollywood. It's just this great mystifying unknown,
Sure.
And so, yeah, one opportunity, if you're lucky, leads to another one. And so you kind of jump from show to show, because even in great success, like in today's day and age, 3 seasons is like a lot, Back in the day, if you got 5 seasons on a show, that could be a career-making stretch. But, in the normal world, we're talking about 5 years at a company, and that's not a career. You can't make a life out of that.
Right.
So you kind of go from show to show, and different opportunities arise. And sometimes there's a great show, and that would be your dream show to get on. But, occasionally that happens, but that's a little bit like scratching off the lottery ticket and coming up a winner. It's always remote, pretty much.
So tell me about The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm doing tshuva, but growing up, I hope my parents don't kill me or my brothers, but like we grew up, our show was watching The Simpsons. And maybe it's because it was cartoons, so like we thought it's for kids.
Yeah.
And there's definitely appreciation for kids for sure. But I literally grew up with it at the point that you were writing on it. So again, I'm doing tshuva, everyone. Don't cancel me. But tell me about that experience, please.
Well, a huge honor. There was a sense like more than once where I felt like in the moment, I'm participating in something that's going to last. Like I'm doing something historic right now. And again, I didn't create the show. I was one of the writers. So I don't want to overplay my role in any sense. I joined the show in the 5th and 6th seasons I was on, which a lot of people feel like is the golden age,
Yes.
So that was cool to be on it then. But at the same time, a very difficult job, extremely difficult job, because every company, every show has its own unique culture. And I'm very into brainstorming. I love bouncing ideas off of people, and until you get something that you're both very excited about. That's my process. Here you had about 12 guys in the room, half of whom went to Harvard, by the way, sitting in silence, like they were in their own internal humor laboratory. And, the basic kind of structure of a joke is you have the setup and then you have the payoff. So, or like the lead in and then you have the punchline. And so these people in their own minds would think of the setup and the punchline, and then they would just deliver this polished, finished product, which was like a skill I simply don't have. I simply don't have that skill. So while I was able to participate and contribute in everything like that, it's just it was hard. It was hard.
And you won an Emmy and a Golden Globe for the writing on The Simpsons, or a different show?
So I got an Emmy for my work on The Simpsons and a Golden Globe Award for a show called Third Rock from the Sun, which was about aliens impersonating themselves as human beings.
Sure.
And that was like a real That show had a lot of Torah in it because it was sort of like these adults, because these aliens inhabit the bodies of these grown people, and they're sort of in disguise, but they're seeing all of the things that we take for granted for the first time. And so they're constantly in a state of wonder. And that leads to just all these absurd situations. And it's that frame of mind is a very Toradic kind of consciousness that all of the great people really strive to be in, where you're never taking anything for granted, where you're kind of like participating, because we say that God is creating and recreating the world every single nanosecond. Like from the time I'm beginning this sentence to the time I finished it, the universe has been created probably an infinite number of times. I mean, it's unbelievable. But how do you stay in that place? And so it was great to work on that show, because even though it was very much a secular piece of entertainment, their mindset was very Toradic.
Fascinating. At what point did you start, I guess, shifting into the Frum life?
When I was 24 years old, I decided I had been blessed with so many things in my life. Like I had set high goals for myself, and just as a gift, I was, granted the opportunity to do different things that I really wanted to do. And I wanted to say thank you back to God. I wanted to say thank you, Hashem, right? For me, just the way, I had grown up, and just kind of the way things had come together in that unique way that all of us are unique, in terms of our process. For me, I felt like the best way that I could say thank you back to God was by keeping Shabbos.
And cold turkey, like you just started keeping Shabbos?
Well, it had been growing inside me for a long time, It had been growing inside me in different ways. I continued from the time that I told you I was holding the Torah and dancing with the Torah at 14. Every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I was by Reb Shlomo, and he was always telling over stories of all the tzaddikim. And, I saw a lot of life. I really did. I have to say, nothing touched me more deeply than the stories of the tzaddikim. And I got to a certain place in my life where I felt like, I don't want to overstate it. I don't want to say I've seen it all, because obviously I hadn't seen it all. But I had seen enough of life and what life had to offer, and the fancy parts of life too, by the way, that I thought, okay, at this point, it's just going to be more and bigger versions of this. You know what I mean? Like, I had been in really nice homes. Had I been in sprawling mansions? No. But what was a sprawling mansion? It was just the house I was in, plus another 10 or 15 rooms.
Right.
I get the idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you don't have to be a genius to think, okay, this, but bigger, So at a certain point, I really felt like I was in a position to sort of like try to intelligently chart my path forward in a very thoughtful way. And I thought, okay, well, I've seen all of these things. And for me, all of them, as pleasurable and as nice as they were, all ultimately led to dead ends. And let me go a little bit deeper in terms of what I mean by that. You see, we have a soul, and our soul is a piece of God. A soul is this aspect of infinity that's inside of us. And after 120, after we die, we leave this world, and our soul lives on. And so now, imagine where my two fingers are over here. Imagine this is infinite. Now, if you put something, even something large, next to something infinite, even that large thing is like nothing next to the infinite thing.
Sure.
So what's a large life? Say 120 years. You have 120 years juxtaposed next to eternity. 120 years is like that. It's nothing. So I thought to myself, if I'm actually ambitious, I've got to get eternity right. Because that's where I'm going to be for like 99.9999999% of my life. And so I was taking these things much more seriously. And then also, there's a teaching that I heard. I heard it in the name of a great Hasidic master. And then later I found out that it was actually said by a biker in drug rehab.
Oh, wow.
With like tattoos up and down his arm.
Interesting.
But I think it might actually be an even better source for this. And that's the following, that all of us, you and me, all of us, are created with a God-shaped hole inside of us. So what does that mean? So let me try to explain it. You know, we've all done jigsaw puzzles. And so imagine you got a patch and just kind of missing one piece over here. If you put the wrong piece in, you can bang on it, and it's not going to fit. It's got to be the right piece to fit. So I think all of us feel deep down that something is missing. And kind of the more sensitive we are as human beings, the more we're in touch with that aspect that we feel is missing. And a lot of us don't know what to do with that sense, you know? And we try to fill it with different things: food, career, money, drugs, relationships, pleasure, entertainment, and nothing fits. And the reason nothing fits is because it's a God-shaped hole. The only thing that fits is God. You know, now everybody knows what a USB port is, right? That's that little slot on the side of your computer that you plug something in. So I thought of it in this way, that God creates a USB port, like right over here, and he creates that hole so that we can plug in. So in other words, that sense that there's something missing, that's God calling you. That's God calling you to devote yourself to him. So it's kind of like a little kind of like knock at the door, that sensation. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a reminder that the fullness is with him.
That's really beautiful. Rabbi Yitzchak Breitowitz, Rabbi Uri Zohar, Rebbetzin Esther Youngreis, Rabbi Meir Schuster, and even Rabbi Akiva. All these people have something in common. They weren't born in an Orthodox home. In fact, they were born in homes that may have identified as Jewish, but not much more. But they each had the opportunity and environment to help them connect. Ohr Somayach is one of the most powerful institutions today, helping connect and create thousands of Frum Jews every single day. Since October 7th, the rise in anti-Semitism has been staggering. Some places are reporting a 1,000% increase in incidents. It's terrifying. And in times like these, so many Jews are searching for something deeper, looking to strengthen their connection to Hashem, their families, their history, just trying to feel grounded when everything else feels shaky. For over 50 years, Yeshivas Ohr Sameyach in Yerushalayim has been a home for people who want that connection. Since 1970, they've welcomed students from all walks of life, helping them rediscover their Jewish identity in a way that's real and powerful. Whether it's their beautiful campus in Yerushalayim, their branches around the world, or even online through Torah classes and Q&As with Rabbi Yitzchak Breitowitz, if you know, you know. It's a great podcast. Ohr Sameyach has helped hundreds of thousands of people build their unbreakable bond with their heritage. Here's the deal. In a world that's trying to shake us, we need places like Ohr Sameyach more than ever. This isn't just about learning, it's about standing tall, knowing who we are, and living with pride. They've set a $3 million fundraising goal, and honestly, every bit counts. If you've ever felt the impact of Jewish learning, whether it's from a shir, podcast, or a life-changing trip to Israel, you get it. Be a part of this. Support Ohr Sameyach and help strengthen the Jewish people, one neshama at a time. Click the link to their cause match and donate $36, $1,000, whatever it is that you can. You literally don't know how many worlds you will be saving. We'll get back to the episode, and personally, my favorite part is coming up. But do you ever feel like your business has all the right pieces, but something's missing that's holding it together? That's where BitBean comes in. They're the glue that keeps everything running smoothly so your business can thrive and grow. BitBean isn't just a software company. They are problem solvers who take the time to understand your unique challenges, whether it's streamlining operations, automating daily tasks, or integrating your data seamlessly. BitBean builds custom solutions that connect every part of your business. The result, everything clicks into place, and you're free to focus on growth instead of putting out fires. Think of BitBean as the invisible force that turns chaos into clarity. Your business processes start working together like a well-oiled machine, efficient, seamless, and scalable. Whether you're managing real estate portfolios, running a healthcare facility, or leading a fast-growing team, BitBean keeps you connected and in control. If your business feels stuck or you're tired of duct taping things together, it's time to level up with BitBean. This is my favorite part. The solutions don't just solve problems, they unlock your business's full potential. BitBean, the glue that keeps you together, the engine that drives you forward, because growth starts with smart systems. Reach out at bitbean.com. Now back to this week's episode. What I want to talk about, and you're like touching on it, is that your love for Hasidish, Torah, and you even brought in, I forgot which sefer it is, but like heavy Hasid. What sefer is it?
Oh, that was Zera Kodesh by the Ropshitzer Rebbe. I'll tell you, I'll tell you, if you want to know, like, not that you're sitting there wondering, what would it like to be him? But if you did want to know, and even if you don't want to know, I'm going to tell you. Because this was just a story that happened on the way to see you that just is like, I feel like it's just so emblematic of my life, you know? Like this stuff is like always happening to me. So I'm sitting on the train coming out, the LIRR, right? I'm coming in from Manhattan. Train is basically empty. No one even has a yarmulke or anything like that. And I'm learning Zera Kodesh, you know, the Ropshitzer Rebbe. He's one of the great Hasidic masters, if you don't know. He was the right-hand man of the Choz of Lublin, the seer of Lublin. And just a holy super genius. Anyway, so I'm learning it with the rabbi that I learned with in the mornings. And I shared with you, we're learning 5 times a week for close to 33 years now.
Wow.
And so I look up and I'm sort of like semi-shocked because there's a full-on chassid, payas and beard, long black coat hat, like staring at me, like holding up, you know, the Ropshitzer Rebbe's book. And he says to me, "You're learning Zera Kodesh, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Why?" And without even thinking, I said, "Because I'm a Jew and this is Torah." And he said, "My son-in-law is a descendant of the Ropshitzer Rebbe." Like, and then you told me that Hasidim normally are not
At
even
that
on
point,
that
the
thing.
LIR, no, like there's not really. Yeah, it's, I don't, maybe Mashiach, who knows? It's very interesting. But yeah, it seems like these stories happen to you because it's interesting. I think when someone is a Baal or Baal Teshuva, they have that shift in their life. But it's interesting because you, to me, I mean, you're still in Hollywood and writing, but you're so connected to the Hasidic world to the point that, and I'd love to bring this up if you're okay with it. The book by your son, can we bring that up?
Of course. Yeah, we have to discuss it.
Cool. So let's get into it. Why did he write it? I guess not through you, through your wife. He's
yeah.
Let's get into it.
Okay. So very exciting. I'm glad you brought it up. A big project. So the Art Scroll is about to publish their first full-on book devoted completely to the Kotzker Rebbe. And the Kotzker Rebbe was one of the greatest of all the Hasidic masters. And my wife is a direct descendant of the Kotzker Rebbe from a line of rabbis from Rebbe Menachem Mendel of Kotzk. Her last name is Morgenstern. You know, that was his name. And my youngest son, is named Menachem Mendel after the Kotzker Rebbe. She had a dream, my wife had a dream, that when she was pregnant, that she should name the child Menachem Mendel. And actually, his bris, which is also the naming, you name the child at the bris, was on the yahrzeit of the Kotzker Rebbe. So he decided that he was going to start a project, and he got in touch with Art Scroll, and they put their top writer, Rabbi Besser, on the book, and it's coming out in time for Hanukkah this year. So it's shortly going to be in bookstores.
Wow. And you know, it's interesting, and you tell me what you see about it. I have very little knowledge about Kotzk, but it seemed very different from the Baal Shem Tov's approach. Baal Shem Tov was more about the appreciation and joy. Again, I don't know this stuff, but I guess I've read up. And Kotzk was more about like MS and truth.
Yes.
Not a contradiction, but
right.
Very different styles. And like you are, again, you run. I don't know if that's the appropriate word of the Happy Minyan.
Yeah.
The famous Happy Minyan in LA. So like, is Kotzk like a stira to that? Like, how does it flow together?
Yeah, you know, I like to say about the Happy Minyan in LA, and everyone should come and visit. You know, it's the best davening in town, and you'll love it, especially Friday night. I like to say that we're happy, but we're seriously happy. And so maybe that's a little bit of the Kotzk shining through.
Right. I hear that.
You know, for people not that familiar with the Kotzker Rebbe, he was just this unbelievably legendary Jewish figure, this giant in Jewish history. And as you mentioned, his hallmark was truth. One of my favorite teachings of his is that he says, it's a very big miracle to resurrect the dead, but it's an even bigger miracle to resurrect the living. I thought about that for many, many years. And here's my explanation. You know why it's a bigger miracle to resurrect the living?
Why is that?
Because when it comes to resurrecting the dead, you don't have to ask for their permission. When it comes to the living, they've got to be on board.
Yeah, people can be complicated.
That's a whole nother.
Yeah, I hear that. Out of the 613 mitzvahs,
Yeah.
I particularly like asking Baal Teshuvas this question.
Yeah.
Or Gerim, because I feel like someone like me, I grew up with it, so I take it for granted. So it's like, whatever. It's not as special, but I love asking Baal Teshuva. What is your favorite mitzvah, if you have one?
I would say God is my favorite mitzvah.
Is that a mitzvah?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
We can count it. I mean, there's a lot of mitzvahs about God, believing in God, and knowing there's a God. And
I was thinking because, you tipped me off to that question in advance.
Sure.
And my first, I saw it. What's my favorite mitzvah? And I thought to myself, God's my favorite mitzvah. And then I asked myself, is God a mitzvah? And I remember there's a debate actually about the first of the 10 commandments. Famous debate between the Ramban and the Rambam. So the Rambam says that it is a mitzvah. What is the mitzvah of the first commandment? Because that's Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am God, your God. So what is the mitzvah exactly? So the mitzvah is to believe in God. And the Ramban says it's not a mitzvah at all. Because I am God, your God, just underpins the whole superstructure of all of reality. And so it's not a mitzvah. So is God a mitzvah? Maybe not. I don't know. But continuing to give maybe a more definitive answer to your question, but which is consistent with what I just said, I think learning, teaching, and living Torah, which is all one unit, or ought to be. If it's not, there's some issue there. Just having my eyes continually open to new and wondrous things about this amazing creation that God made, so that I can love Him more and serve Him better.
That's so nice. And you sent me last night. I listened to one of your episodes of your podcast. Very creative name. Can you say, I don't want to botch it. What's the name of it?
It's called Spiritual Tools for an Outrageous World. I do 2 episodes a week. One is 1 hour. That comes out on Sunday every week. And the other comes out on Thursday night. And that one's 3 minutes on the Parsha, usually.
Yeah. So I didn't listen to the hour one yet. I listened to the 3-minute one. But it's really cool because you have such a unique position, because it's definitely, I guess, in the Frum world, not encouraged. Like, guys are not, or girls are, or women are not encouraged to go and become writers in Hollywood. Like, Hollywood is, at least from the world I'm from, is like Hollywood. It's not even like a thought. So you're coming in from like, you didn't grow up, traditional, like the same way I did, or many of the listeners did. And you're in that world, but you have that, like, I guess, writing and creative perspective. But then you also have this like appreciation for God. And then like you throw in all that Hasidus in there, and you give that over on that podcast. It's a cool blend. It's a very unique, cool blend.
Sometimes people say, well, what's it like to be in the Hollywood world and the Frum world? And it's just like, I don't understand the question. It's God's world. It's only the only thing going on 24/7 is God. That's the only thing literally going on. So to compartmentalize it like that, it's like, you can, but have that conversation with someone else.
Right. It's really cool. Is there a particular topic that you like to delve into? I mean, again, it's a hard question to really answer because there's so many things, but like, where do you, like, where's your heart most? Like, I love discussing this.
Yeah. So for me, it's creation. I love creation. And I was actually born, my birth parsha is Breshis.
Oh.
Which may have something to do with that. I don't know. But I learned Parshas Breshis all year long.
Hmm.
Whatever I'm learning just somehow ends up back in Gan Eden or by Shviras HaKelim, by the creation of the universe itself. I just started learning a sefer called, the last couple of years I've been learning this sefer called Pischei Sharm, which is a very kind of deep, step-by-step book from the first thought of creation all the way to Mashiach.
Wow.
Going step by step through all the worlds and universes. And it's awesome. It's awesome.
It's interesting. I guess it's not a coincidence that, that process of writing is creation. You're creating a world out of, you have just a paper, nothing's there, and then you're creating scenarios, and ultimately that's turned into an actual, show.
Yesh mi'ayin.
Yeah, it's like that. I think there's part of what I'm doing with podcasts that I think is so cathartic because, again, I'm not creating you, but it's like creating this conversation or whether we create a vlog or whatever it is that I really like. But I think everyone likes creating because we're created in the image of Hashem, and Hashem's the ultimate creator, and we want to be like Hashem. So yeah, we can't physically actually create a universe, but whether we're creating mitzvahs or a script or a podcast or a child, I don't know what, like that idea, like just growing this world, it's a very godly thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. And I would sort of like jump in and say, you say we want to be like Hashem, but what I would say is we are like Hashem. In other words, we have an neshama, which is an aspect of Hashem in us. So it's already there. We're not making it up. It's just a question of to what extent can we fully manifest the godliness that's already inside of us.
If there's one person from history that you could spend an hour with, it could be someone like Moshe Rabbeinu from like way back when, or a distant relative, or a relative that's no longer here with us. An hour. Who would you spend it with?
Well, if you asked me in 5 minutes, I'd probably give you another answer.
Right now.
I mean, but this second, the name that's coming to mind is David HaMelech.
Why David?
Well, he had a hard time.
He did.
He had a hard time. It would be nice to know how he was able to hold on so hard and so completely amidst his pain and suffering.
You're making me very curious. I don't want to step over. Is there something that you're going through or you've gone through that was so difficult that you were like, and I guess it's a very personal question.
No, it's extremely personal, and I don't mind you asking at all. And thank God the answer is no.
Wow. So then why? What part of David going through such difficulties are you curious about? Like where's the essence of that question? The answer.
Because all of our souls are connected, and you have to feel another person's pain like it's your own. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon said, "The more knowledge, the more pain." It means the more you open up your mind, the more you're aware of what other people are going through. And if you're really going to be a stand-up person, you've got to take some of that on you too. Not to depress you, God forbid, not to depress you, but to somehow uplift that person to do something.
Very special. Is there, and I'm sure there's a lot, but is there one story that sticks out to you that inspires you, gives you chizuk? It could be something that happened in your life. It could be something you read, something you watched, whatever. What's that story?
I'm debating between two stories right now, and I'm going to go with the one that I didn't think I was going to tell. Just because maybe there's someone out there who will be more touched by this one. So I heard this from Reb Shlomo in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov was walking with one of his students, and everybody knows back in the day before indoor plumbing, one of the jobs that everyone had in every community was the water carrier. And if you've ever picked up a full bucket of water, you know how heavy it is. And so they would have a pole on their back, and they would, to balance it out, put two buckets of water. And all day long, they would carry it from a well or from the river to people's houses, to the marketplace, whatever it is. It's literally a backbreaking job, very, very hard labor. And so the Baal Shem Tov is with one of his students, and he sees like an old man who's a water carrier, and they walk up to him, and the Baal Shem Tov says, "How are you?" And the man answers back with like an angry voice. He says, "I'm 70 years old, and I'm carrying 2 heavy buckets of water. How do you think I am?" Sometime after that, days, weeks, months, I don't know, they see the man again, and the Baal Shem Tov is with the same student, and they go up to the man again. The Baal Shem Tov asks, "How are you doing?" And the man says, listen carefully, with the exact same words, but this time with a happy voice, "I'm 70 years old, and I'm carrying 2 heavy buckets of water. How do you think I am?" And Reb Shlomo said about that, we can't always change the circumstances of our life, but how we feel about them can change every single day. And that's done through prayer.
Very special. Very special. Before we end, I want to give a plug for the few things that we spoke about that we'll have a link in the show notes. One is your son's book.
Yes.
With Art Scroll.
Yes, and by the way, my whole family sponsored it along with other people, but he did spearhead it. Yeah.
It's incredible. It's incredible. So definitely people should go check it out and get a real understanding of who the Kotzker Rebbe was.
Yeah. Thanks to Rabbi Besser.
Yes, yes. And then also we're going to link your podcast for people to check it out.
Yes, check it out. If you enjoyed what I've said with Yaakov today, then it's more of that.
Yeah. I don't think we need to link The Simpsons. I think enough people have seen it. I don't know if they're in like season 150. Like they're good. They're well off. And also, I know it's not out yet, but I do want to pick your brain on the book that you're working on, which is like a very fascinating idea. Please share it with us, and if you're okay with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I know people's attention spans are very short, and my favorite thing to do is I love Hasidic wisdom. That's like 2 lines, and I always think when I was in high school, I learned that there are these things called dwarf stars, where if you take a teaspoon of a dwarf star, it weighs billions of pounds.
Wow.
And that's how I feel about these teachings, So I'm not putting myself in that category, but I appreciate short, deep, and clear. So with that in mind, I put together a collection of my favorite thoughts. They're like maybe a page or 2 long, like a little book that you can carry around with you. And it's called The Book of Closeness, How to Create Your Own Personal Relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's very special to me. And I hope it's the type of book that people just open to any page and it just speaks to them and gives them strength.
It's amazing. Well, David, thanks so much for coming and doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. And again, comment below fire or your favorite lesson from this week's episode, and 5 lucky winners will win a Kotzk book. And everyone else, use the code word INSPIRE for 15% off on artscroll.com. And of course, you'll get free shipping and you'll really, really enjoy this book. I'm still going through it, and the Rebbe was like no other. Link to it below. Definitely check it out. Also, we will link David's podcast below. He's so good at speaking, and check them out for really thoughtful ideas on Torah and just life. And before I get to my fun fact on this week's episode, thanks again to our sponsors, the Dream Raffle. Use code LL, and I'm really hoping that one of you will win the apartment. Twillory, their activewear is perfect for both people who are actually active and people who are like being cozy and not in the gym. BitBean, business people listening to this, just give them a call. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. And donate to Ohr Somayach to help them continue to educate the Jewish world. Such an important cause, especially in 2025. Okay, here's the random fun fact. David is good friends with late night host and comedian Conan O'Brien. I found that very interesting. From Guy, Conan O'Brien, good friends. Okay, here's my takeaway. David Sachs' journey reminds us that true fulfillment comes not from dramatic events or sudden miracles, but from recognizing how each moment, big or small, is orchestrated by something greater. It's about finding meaning in the everyday, realizing that every success and setback is a step towards a deeper connection with who you were meant to be. Remember, inspiration is everywhere. L'chaim. Living L'chaim.